more on the President and Deputy President's visits abroad, I'm joined by SABC News International Editor Sophie Mokoena. Good afternoon, Sophie.
Good afternoon.
Well, let's start with President Cyril Ramaphosa's visit to the United States. How has the South African delegation been received so far?
Well, I think it's very difficult to really analyze the reception in terms of behind the scenes, but what we see in public, it looks like it's business as usual in terms of when one head of state is visiting another country, starting with the reception at the military base. When Inkwazi landed, you saw those formalities and the red carpet. So you could see that they are receiving a head of state. Up to the hotel, the president looked very confident, and his team saying that he's ready for the meeting. We know that yesterday there were meetings with the staff and the advanced team to give him a briefing in terms of what he needs to focus on in terms of the issues and what they have picked up as they engage their counterparts in Washington. And I think today the focus will be real preparations starting this morning. I know that they are already up. We've been in communication with the President's office, with Shawan. Everybody's up preparing for tomorrow. We know in the afternoon there will be a media briefing in terms of the program, because as we speak, we don't know what time will that meeting start tomorrow. But because of the time difference and based on what we see normally happening at the Oval Office, we know that it's going to be in the early midday their time, which is evening our time. And therefore, now today it is preparations, and it looks like the information is now being disseminated in terms of all those different role players, including the ministers who are accompanying the president.
Now, on Deputy President Paul Mashatile's visit to France, how does Mashatile's visit fit into South Africa's broader foreign policy, especially balancing relations with Western nations like France against partnerships with other global powers like BRICS countries?
Let's look at the budget today. The budget that is going to be presented by the finance minister tomorrow, you have a challenge of a deficit. They couldn't raise tax, and therefore you have to ensure that you reach a better economic growth so that you are able to close that gap. To do that, you need trade and investment. And therefore South Africa will have to engage in a robust trade and investment campaign and roadshows. You already have another problem, which is the United States of America. That money that used to come from the US, you are now having a challenge. You need to close that tap. Therefore, you have to look for alternative markets, untapped alternative markets, particularly on the continent, to increase trade volumes with countries that you are already doing business with. The European Union has been very kind to South Africa since the dawn of democracy. The EU, at some point in time, was our second largest trading partner years back. We've dropped a bit. Go back and revive that relationship on trade. Because at this moment, with the United States of America unpredictable, the European Union group also experiencing a similar problem, you can be guaranteed that you'll get a support from the EU member countries, even at the G7 level, as Canada is the host. Now France also, Germany, and many other countries. Therefore, this is what South Africa is doing. But I would like to see a situation where you escalate or you put more emphasis on the continent, because the continent is an untapped market, and you can use the African Continental Free Trade Area to increase trade volume on the continent. And therefore, this is part of this. If they don't do this, remember earlier on we said the minister has to really handle the issue of the fiscal framework in a very, very delicate manner because we don't have resources. That's the only way you can bring in resources. You look at the unemployment in South Africa, it's quite huge. If you lose that automotive sector industry, in Roslyn, you retrench, in East London, in PE, where you have assembly of cars, where you have volumes going to US, you will retrench. And you know already you are in a crisis. Therefore, you have to deal with all those issues. You must also ensure that you get a market for this automotive sector in other regions. And remember, yes, Mercedes-Benz, BMW are the German companies, but the Germans themselves, they are giving us more numbers and requests and orders to assemble because they know the market in America, they also benefit. They will reduce even those orders or those assignments in terms of assembly. So you have the citrus. You have to ensure that you get alternative markets. That's the only way, but I think Africa is an untapped market.
Thank you very much. SABC News International Editor Sophie Mokoena, as usual, sharing her valuable insights on the President's visit to the United States and that crucial budget speech being delivered tomorrow.